Let's get started on how to run a global cloud scale event for 10,000 people. Making sure that everything is working. This is how we started the Global DevOps Bootcamp 2019 last year, where we had participants in 35 countries. It was a free community event where everybody could join on their free Saturday to learn something new about DevOps. We ran in 7 different Azure DevOps organizations, 4 different Azure subscriptions, and while doing so and setting the whole platform up for the participant, we even caused 3 outages in Azure DevOps. So I'm here to share the story about how we as a team did everything in the background and make sure that everything worked. Get started with the lessons learned that you can take from this session. The things that we do here that we have used and seen, the issues that we ran into, does not only work for us as community events, doing large scale things in the cloud, but this also has takeaways for your day job as well. So I'll go over those as well. I'll show you how we work together as a globally distributed team to get things going. Because I didn't, of course, do it by myself. We had a team of even 20 people at some time helping us out. I'll go over some of the technical design decisions that we made to get everything available and running in the cloud, and I'll explain how we designed everything with the end in mind. Let's start over first with what is the Global DevOps Bootcamp. Global DevOps Bootcamp is a free community event that we now have done for 3 years. We're planning to the 2020 version in October this year, so that will be a 4th edition. And we invite the community all over the world to spend the Saturday with us to learn all about DevOps. And we want to give them hands-on information and learn what DevOps really means. It originated because we want to have a bootcamp for DevOps and give people hands-on experience. And we noticed some issues with other bootcamps that have been around. We noticed that they're only globally by name. You can hook up as a venue organizer with that bootcamp. So I'm participating in the global bootcamp there. And from then on, you're basically on your own. You usually get some visuals, but then you are very much on your own. You need to bring your own content. If you want to have speakers available, you need to get speakers over there. You need to have a slide deck that they can present. And if you want to have a workshop, you need to create that workshop. And if you're only doing that for your own event, that felt like lots of work to us that you could only use maybe one time, maybe a couple of other times, but that's a lot of work for one venue organizer. So we wanted to make it better, make it a better experience for everybody, and that's what we call the event out of the box. Event out of the box means that we have a worldwide event with the same exercises everywhere, everybody's working on the same content, and we can get that global vibe from that. Instead of everybody doing their own thing, everybody is doing the same thing. That means for the local organizers that we provide a lot of stuff for them. But they then need to provide a location that they can open the doors up and make sure that there's coffee and other drinks available. They need to have a working internet connection, of course, because we are doing everything in the cloud as well. They need a way to host the local event. Make sure there's a local speaker that can go through the slide decks that they can present there. Make sure they have proctors to help the attendees with, because it's a hands-on experience. So you need to have some people walking around, helping the attendees with any questions that might arise. And the local organizers then need to make sure that they engage their community. It's their local community. We're only attaching a global name to it, and they need to engage and make sure that everybody is joining us for the day. For us, it means a little bit more. We started with a global pre-recorded keynote. In 2017, we had Donovan Brown over from Microsoft, who was explaining us what DevOps actually is. In 2018, we had Buck Hutchins over, also from Microsoft. He was the director of engineering for what then was called VSDS. And he explained us how they used everything to go from once a month to deploy things to multiple times a day. And then we had Niall Murphy over last year. He's with his team responsible for making sure that Azure is living up to its SLAs. So he's the site reliability engineer there. We wrote a book about site reliability engineering as well. So it's a very interesting topic. And you can even find those presentations. There were pre-recorded videos. And you can find them on our website as well if you want to learn more about it. Next to the global keynote, we even provide a local keynote. We even hire a professional engineer to make that, a professional designer, sorry, to make that local keynote. So we make sure that everything is looking very nicely and that it works good. and that everything is set up there out of the box. We even do a dry run with the local organizers who are speaking and presenting the local keynote on how we would bring the keynote. So everything is prepared for them out of the box. We make sure that we have content available that revolves around the theme. We give all the attendees exercises because we want to give them hands-on experience. We even provided the scoreboard in all the previous years where people could compete and view how they were doing with regards to the challenges that we gave them, the exercises. We set up the infrastructure so nobody needs to bring their own laptop, make sure that they have all the tools available. No, we send you to a website, we set up the infrastructure and everything is available. We handle the global communication, we even provide marketing and branding guides, and then we start engaging everybody on social media. So for us, it's a little bit more work, but with that, we give you a package, an event out of the box, and you can start running it yourself. As I said, I didn't do that myself. This is the core team for 2019. Lots of these people helped out in the spare time. They spent a lot of time setting everything up. And you need to make sure that you have a team like that. You cannot do that by yourself. It's way too much work. So get the team to create and even run then the local of the global event. Everybody's volunteering their time, and what we usually do in the months leading up to the event is that we have a weekly meeting online in the evening where we discuss the things that we need help with, things that how they are going, discuss the sponsorship agreements or who's helping out with what, and how can we get another line into a specific product, for example. All those things are discussed usually weekly. And some of the team members are even responsible handling all the sponsoring as well. So you cannot do that by yourself. With such a team, you can then start to search for venue organizers. And most of these searches are done online through our own social media networks. But some of our team members are Microsoft MVPs, and this was the MVP Summit in 2019 at Microsoft, where we made sure we got the word around. One team member did a presentation there explaining what the Global DevOps Bootcamp is. And then we said, okay, if you want to host a venue there, you get a cool t-shirt, which led to images like this that we can then reuse for our social media engagement. And all of this is, of course, communication is key. We need to build out a community. You need to make sure that everybody's aware of things. And after the first year where we did everything by email, we turned it over to Slack, where everything in our communication lives in Slack. We invite all the venue organizers there, all the sponsors are there, everybody's helping out. We have a Slack channel with more than 250 people last year, and everybody can get the information there. We even need to make sure that we do community calls, once in the early morning for us and once in the late evening for us, so everybody around the world can join. So this is for the venue organizers. And we tell them there what we expect from them, what they are supposed to do, how everything is working, what the theme is, how we set up social media for them, for example, and learn as we go there. We make sure that we even record them and then reshare them later on so everybody can still watch them in their own time if they still couldn't join one of those two sessions. And then all the information is gathered, of course, in a centralized wiki where everybody can join, ask questions. So we make sure that everybody's on board and up to date on the status. Taking this back to your day job, this of course means you need to look into your stakeholder management. You need to engage all your stakeholders, whether it be your team members, whether it be your real stakeholders, or your sponsors. You need to make sure that everybody is up to the same level of information. From that, we started looking at, how many venues do we currently have? In 2019, we ended up with 90 venues worldwide who were willing to participate in the Global DevOps Bootcamp. So this is what we are doing it for. We have now 90 venues worldwide that need to run on the platform that we want to give it. So this will determine the scale that we need to configure everything for, set everything up. This will determine the amount of Azure credits, for example, that we were running on. This is what we are doing it for. You're engaging the global community. Okay, so we have the venue organizers discussed as well. So what do then the venues need? They need a way to get attendees over and can communicate with them, and they need to get some content for the event itself. For the attendees in 2017, the team looked around. I was a part of the team in 2017 and joined in 2018. And we started looking around and see, should we build something ourselves? Because we want to give all the venue organizers a way to handle the attendee registration, and then even if they are attending or not, maybe send some emails, give them a landing page if you don't have anything for the community. And so we want to give them something available. And we started looking around at building something, but we were already building the platform, and that's a lot of work anyway. And we found out that there is Eventbrite that you can then run if you're running a free event. That you can use as a platform as a service. So everything is available for you. You can use the platform, and that was decided then, okay, let's start creating Eventbrite events. We have the Global DevOps Bootcamp umbrella on top of it, and then we want to hand out an account to venue organizers for their local event, so they can do the administration for themselves. What we learned from doing that is that Eventbrite does have a nice API where you can create events and send mails and do things, but there are a lot of things that are not in the API available. So we chose to go with a platform that was available out of the box, and when we started programming against it, because we had 90 venues and you don't want to do that by hand, of course, you learn that things are hard. For example, creating the co-administrators for an event cannot be done with the API. You have to do that through the website. So that was sort of where I came in 2018, and I looked at it and said, well, I have a really big hammer that's called Selenium. With Selenium, I can fake the thing that a browser is doing. So I started using that. And this is where the console application in C# originated. You see it coming back a couple of times in this presentation because it started as a simple thing, and then we started to add more and more functionality into it. And with that, I faked that I was a user in the browser, and we automated the things in Eventbrite with the browser that we couldn't automate with the API. Taking this back to our normal work, this is the discussion that you have usually over the discussion, do we go for software as a service, or do we need to manage the full platform and go infrastructure as a service? So give me the virtual machine and I'll do the things myself. You do that in your day job as well. So we had that as a venue organizer as well. And for Eventbrite, we immediately went over to SaaS because we didn't want to buy it ourselves. And that meant that we didn't have the control over the platform as we would have liked to. So we had to make things work there. Then we have some venue organizers who said, I'm willing to participate. Then we need to start reaching out to the actual attendees. And for that, we created some social promos with some help of Microsoft, who were sponsoring us. And this is one of the examples that we created. This was Damian Brady, one of the cloud developer advocates at Microsoft, one of the 5, together with Donovan Brown. And they helped us out with making some promos that we can then share on social media and do all the marketing there. It was basically just guerrilla marketing. We didn't spend any money on it, just using our platforms, social media reach, as well as theirs, of course. From that, we started looking at content. We made the keynotes already that I explained. Then we went over to making sure that we had some exercises for the attendees to do. What then determines the workspace that we wanted to give the attendees. We prepared a lot of video content in 2019. Where we shared behind the scenes videos talking about the platform that we created. Some of these things will come back in this presentation. And you can even view them if you still want to do that. We provisioned a professional styling guide together with the designer that we hired, and we sent it out all over the world so people could do something, like go to the local print shop and print stickers. We've seen mugs, we've seen t-shirts, bags and other swag as well. Most of it was handed out during the event, of course. And then we started working with a theme. When we started in 2017, there was just an idea, let's start a Global DevOps Bootcamp. So we didn't have a theme, it was just the Global DevOps Bootcamp. In 2018, we moved over to actually adding a theme to do all the swag creation with, for example, and make sure that that comes back on our website. And the theme was from once a month, multiple times a day. So that is where we learned how to automate your deployments. And in 2019, it was you build it, you run away, or you should actually run it. Where we gave the team some responsibility. You have a running platform. It's your responsibility to keep it in the air. You're now a DevOps engineer, and you will learn on the job how that works. For the workspace, we gave them a fully functioning webshop. This webshop is open source. You can find it on GitHub. It has an ASP.NET MVC front end. It has a SQL database backend. So we had a real working platform where you could go through the items in the shop. And this, of course, relates back to Parts Unlimited, the fictitious company in the Phoenix project. That is all near and dear to our DevOps hearts, of course. So this is a nice gesture into that as well. So we wanted to give every team a working web shop that they could run. So then you have, and we were running in Azure because we had all of us had knowledge in Azure anyway, and Microsoft was one of our sponsors, so that made it very easy to do that. We had a working app service in here, a SQL database, and we gave them application insights to have some telemetry in their web shop. And then we wanted to create a challenge where we said, okay, your SSL certificate has expired. It's up to you now as an attendee to figure out what has happened, can you fix it, and how can you then deploy your fix. And from that, we got a lot of more ideas on how can we then provision more challenges. A flaky connection to the database, what happens there? From that, we got a sort of a sub-theme that is detect, respond, recover. So those for all the challenges, something has happened to your web shop. We did that in the background. I'll explain more about that later. It's up to you as an attendee now to detect that something happened, figure out what has happened, quickly respond to it, and make sure that website is still running, and then recover from it long term to implement something in your pipeline to make sure that this doesn't happen again. One of the examples that we had, and one of the video contents that we created is, for example, this is a real-life example that sometimes happens. Your CEO goes on social media and declares that your main product of your web shop is now for free. You can imagine then what happens to your engineers who are working as a DevOps team. You can imagine that this would happen if something happened like that and you run a web shop. So for that was the first part. I explained a little bit about what the community is, what Global DevOps Bootcamp is, and we have the premise that all the attendees will get their own web shop and some challenges around that. Let's see what that means regarding setting everything up. And we wanted to give them a working web shop in Azure and set up an app service plan there and set everything up beforehand, of course. But this is the premise that we wanted to give them, and since it's the DevOps theme thing, we also want to give them a fully stocked Azure DevOps environment in this case, on right, where they had CI/CD pipelines, everything available, so they could start running because we give them a fully fledged DevOps platform for that. So what do they need? Well, you need a resource group in Azure, you need an app service, and you need an app service plan to host that app service on. You need your SQL Server database, application insights. We need to roll everything out and then do some security around it with Azure Active Directory. And we started looking at the 90 venues that we had. We determined that we wanted to cap it at 100 anyway. And from the previous years, we did the calculation and we found out we needed 1,200 teams in Azure. And we gave 4 or 5 attendees in a team the chance to do the learning. So we needed to provide all of these resources that you see 1,200 times. Well, you don't want to do that by hand. So we as a DevOps organization as well, we started to use automating tools for that. So if you then start to look in Azure, what do you really want then to do? You don't want to put everything in the same regionality, for example. You want to spread the load out all over the world. And that also helps in reducing the latency for the users. And it made sure that we didn't have a single bottleneck if all of our resources would fail. And Azure has that capacity to spread it out all over the world, so we can do that. We started off with the challenges and the platform, and we told the team members that you can use whatever you like, as long as you can transfer it to somebody else in case of need, and make sure that you use something that you're comfortable in, or use something that you want to discover, maybe a new tool, and write it there for you. I started myself off with the tooling in the Azure CLI. That was new for me and wanted to figure it out. And after a week, I noticed that it was really going very slow. It's taking me a lot of time, and I'm figuring this out in my spare time. And I want to automate all the provisioning in Azure. And for me, it wasn't working out. So I moved back over to my console application that I already had with Selenium for doing all the Eventbrite stuff. Looked at it and said, well, it's already connected to the database. This would make my life a lot easier if I started using that. So I started adding the Azure provisioning steps into the console application again. So you can see the console application is growing again. I already mentioned we want to have a scalable and repeatable process. We are doing 90 venues worldwide, 1,200 teams that we need to provision. So we started using Azure DevOps to run all the tooling that we need to provision everything inside of Azure. You can see that we had 4 subscriptions in there and we were running them simultaneously. And in one of those stages for subscription 2, in this case, you can see that when we start such a stage, we download the console application, give it the secrets that it needs to do something to Azure, and then we say, go provision all the venues. And you can see that we had 1,200 venues of 1,200 teams worldwide with 4 subscriptions. So that meant that one subscription had around 300 teams that needed to be provisioned in Azure. And you can see that this already took us 5 hours to do. So you don't want to do that on your own machine. You do it somewhere in the cloud on a hosted agent, preferably. Let it run over there until it's complete. What we learned from that is that even though they try to sell you like the cloud is infinite, it is not infinite. I was provisioning SQL servers in India, central India, and then suddenly I got a message back from the Azure API that said, sorry, I don't have any SQL servers available anymore. And I thought, okay, that does happen then. Of course, now the breakout of COVID-19 and the surge in teams, we know that this year. But last year, I wasn't aware of that. And we moved over to West India and say maximum capacity reached. So eventually we switched over to the nearest region. That meant that the attendees in India had some more latency to the database, but that would still would be manageable. So even though they try to sell you that cloud's not infinite, it's not. Something similar happened with Application Insights when we were running the ramp up for the event. I found out that Application Insights in Central US wasn't available back then. A couple of months after the event, they did enable it, but not every resource type is available in every region all over the world. So the same with resource types that are off by default. When you start a new subscription in Azure, not all resource types have been enabled. Because as soon as you enable a resource type, you get a quota for that, and Microsoft needs to make sure that they can handle that quota and give you the machines that are promised. So they turn everything off by default. And as we started running everything in subscription 1 during preparation, we didn't notice until we started ramping up for the full setup. Then we noticed. All right, something similar happened with SQL servers. I wasn't aware of that. And you can only create 20 SQL servers per region per subscription. And you can send out a ticket to overcome that soft limit. And we did. One of our team members created 30 tickets because we were in 30 different regions and multiple subscriptions. And all of those tickets were honored 3 days after the event. You could create 200 SQL servers anyway as a maximum per subscription, and that wouldn't work as either because we had 300 teams in each subscription. So we switched that over and made sure that every venue, we had 90 of them, get one SQL server, and then we would give every team a database on that SQL server instead of giving them their own SQL server, which was a little bit better for us security-wise. That was the general idea. So we need to switch that over as well. So you can hit those soft limits in Azure as well. That also happened with Azure Active Directory role assignments. We were having 1,200 teams. They got a team user account, they got a venue admin account, they got a service principal to do things inside of their subscription, and we quite easily ran into the role assignments limit. You can only create 2,000 role assignments per subscription. So all these things are also a reason why we say give every team that you can in your own enterprise organization their own subscription to make sure that you don't hit those limits that easily. It also happens that the default options are not always the options that you want to have. When I was running everything and I created a normal, give me a SQL database, and I got an S1 database back that only costs you around 25 euros a month. And during the last week, when I started provisioning 1,200 teams worldwide, somehow the default had changed to a DS3. As you can see, those are much more costly than the other ones. And I was creating 1,200 databases. So luckily, I had a budget manager running as well. So we noticed that quite early in the first day, but still I already burned through 500 euros of credits in the first day. So don't trust the defaults. If you want to have an S1 database, make sure that you tell the Azure API that you want an S1 database. Taking things back to your normal work, this is all about cost management. Of course, we as a community had to make sure that we had that. We had some sponsorship available, but those credits that we had in Azure were limited and were then backed up by the credit card of our company. So I didn't want to go to explain to my CTO how much money we have burned running this global event. You need to be aware of that as well. You are responsible when you get an Azure subscription for the costs that are incurred there. And if somebody then starts ramping up the cost and spending a couple thousand euros a day, somebody will notice and they will find you. So you need to make sure that your cost management is up to par as well. Okay, that is the Azure part. We wanted to give them a full set of Azure DevOps pipelines as well. So we needed to have some provisioning for Azure DevOps as well. So what do you need there? You need an organization where the teams can land in. next to the set that we already have in Azure. We want to create a team project for the team user to be able to use and watch everything in there. We want to give them a Git repository that's cloned with webshop in there, a fully stocked CI/CD pipeline that can do the deployment into Azure, so you need to make sure that service connection is in there, and everything that is needed for running such a webshop with a CI/CD pipeline in Azure DevOps. And we need to do that 1,200 times again. So we could hook that up into our automation and see how we went from there. Azure DevOps is available in multiple regionalities. So we got 7 different organizations to spread the load. There are 8 now available, but we didn't have that many venues in the United Kingdom, so we skipped that one. So we were running 7 different Azure DevOps organizations. We had 7 organizations, 1,200 teams, so that is roughly around 200 teams per organization. And we had a fully set of build and release pipelines in there, so CI/CD. When you start kicking those off, and normally in your Azure DevOps environment, you can get for your organization 1 to 10 concurrent pipelines. 1 is the default, and then you can buy more. And if you're big enterprise, you can even buy more than 10. But there are limits to how much concurrent pipelines you can buy. We started talking with Microsoft because we wanted to kick off 200 builds per organization when we started provisioning. That would then kick off 200 releases for that organization as well. So that's 400 active connections or pipelines that are running. So this meant that we would have a lot of lead time creating everything, and everything that we were running cost money. So we wanted to make sure that the time window that these things needed to run was as short as possible. We talked to Microsoft, and they were gracious enough to help us out and give us 150 concurrent sponsored pipelines. Last I checked, you cannot even buy that amount of pipelines. We got that per organizations in 7 different organizations. If you start looking at the pipeline that we have for provisioning, this is the zoomed out version, and you can see it's very large. I'll zoom in a bit. The top 2 stages that we call them are for running every day in preparation. So in the months leading up to the event, this would at least run once a day. I'm setting everything up, making sure that all the infrastructure is there in Azure, the resource groups are created, all the team Active Directory accounts are created, and then move over to Azure DevOps and do the same thing there. Make sure all the team projects are there. And the second stage then is setting up the certificates, because we wanted to give them a working web shop with its special URL and an SSL certificate on top of that, because one of the challenges was we yanked your certificate, of course. And you can only do that if you handle your own certificate on it. And you can only do that when the CI/CD pipelines have ran, so that's why this is a separate stage. And then in the middle, this was a row for each organization that we had running. This was the one in West Europe. And in the first stage, you can see that we are pre-downloading the console application again, because that is handling everything for us in Azure. It's running and giving us the data set that we need to have to do everything inside of Azure DevOps. And then the next step is adding all the DNS entries, because DNS needs to propagate worldwide, so we could spin that up front because we knew the team names and the webshops that they would be creating. So we did that in the first stage. And then creating all the team projects in Azure DevOps, because that takes a lot of time, as you can see. And you don't want to do that over and over again. The team projects themselves cost nothing, so you can do that once and then you can iterate over for the next step. The second stage then, if you zoom in again, here you see the same steps. That's a console application, and then you see that we start filling up everything inside of Azure DevOps. So we start making sure that it's clean, deleting all the builds and releases that were previously in there from a previous run, for example. We start by adding the Git repositories as well. Setting up the CI/CD pipelines, everything is in here, and we provision that for each team in that organization. And in here, it's DevOps, and we are DevOps users and consultants, most of the team members. So we started to do what we say you should do. Make sure that you have all those pipelines, all the provisioning scripts, everything that you need there. Make sure that it's in version control and handle it in your pipeline as well. You can see it's a PowerShell call here to get the Git repositories. It would get a template file with settings in there, and it would start to run and do its thing. And even in here, it's zoomed into the build definition that we create for the team. Azure DevOps has a really cool REST API that you can use to automate these things. So here's a call to get the team projects and create then the build definition here. We wrapped that in PowerShell, which was easy for that team member. As I said, we gave every team member the choice to use their own tech stack. And this is just raw API calls using REST. If you don't start, the last stage is then only queuing the builds. And if you start looking at how much time each thing took, creating the team project already cost us an hour and a half. Filling all those team projects in one organization, so that's 200 team projects, is about an hour and 10 minutes. And then in the last stage, we just queue all the builds. And we didn't want to really wait for the builds to be done, because after the builds, automatically a release would fire. And that could just go on and on. So this is a relatively fast task. And that's also the reason why we separated the certificate step again out, because you can only set up the certificates and the DNS entries, link them to the web shops, when this step has run successfully. What you then start to learn, if you're using a SaaS platform like that, and you start hitting it at this scale as we were doing, you hit some weird things. For example, we caused 2 different pipeline outages in 2 different regions, because we were starting 200 builds in a specific organization that was linked to the region, and we brought that out, we brought it down, and Microsoft even had to acknowledge that on the status page. And the funny thing is that an engineer was looking at it and said, well, we don't have any more pipelines available that can handle the load from other customers, because you are using all of it. And you are a free sponsored organization with 150 concurrent pipelines. You cannot even buy those. I know what we'll do, just to make sure that we have enough capacity available for other customers. We just yank it all down to 1 concurrent pipeline. Well, you can imagine how slow our provisioning in that region went. And we had to make some calls to get that updated again, so we could have more concurrent pipelines. So we didn't have to wait until the event was over before all the pipelines were finished. That was very interesting. And something similarly happened in Australia as well. We started 200 builds there as well. And then the agent run on a skill set that will scale out depending on the load that is there. And the scale out happened, but there was a networking issue during that moment in time. And then none of our agents could find the internet, because the networking stack was broken. And since we do an npm restore in here, where we need to download things from the internet, everything broke for us. And one of our team members spent well into the night, I think he went home at 1:30 a.m. With an Azure DevOps site reliability engineer, trying to figure out what is happening and how they can fix it, and then reiterate those calls again. So that was very interesting. From that, we got a very close connection to the Azure product team, where they really started helping us out. This is a tweet from Martin Woodward 1 day before the event. He said, well, maybe not everything will be working as smooth as possible, because we were hitting their services so much that we were breaking things for them as well. So it was very exciting to see if things would work. But this is the close connection that we had with the product team there. We even assigned those site reliability engineers who were responsible for our tenant to make sure that everything is still working up in the air for the full duration of the event. Taking this back to what you need to do at your work as well, is you need to make sure that you have sponsor buy-in. For us, it was direct connection with the Azure DevOps team and Azure, of course, because we were hitting their service at such a scale that, well, we need to have the buy-in so they can reach out to us and say, hey, can we help you? Can we make sure the platform is running? Of course, it's their name on the t-shirt as well, as I say. We were running it on their platform and their setup. And they're sponsoring us, of course, so they needed to make sure the platform was running. But when you have that buy-in, you have that close connection with your sponsors, they can really help you out. All right, that tackles the Azure DevOps part as well. Let's go over to what we did to run everything for the event day. The theme happened to be you build it, you run it. And so we were also responsible for making sure that we had a running platform as well. For example, the challenges website, where we sent all the attendees to, this was the entry point for them to start the challenge. We gave them a quick application, we did something with the web shop, and then it was up to them to detect, respond, and recover from those issues. One of the ways that we did it is that when they started a challenge, we would kick off a Docker container. We looked around to make sure that everything could work, and we gave them the responsibility to our team members to say, well, it needs to be in a Docker container. I don't care what technology you use. Want to use Bash scripts, PowerShell scripts, the Azure CLI, .NET in there, go ahead, .NET Core, of course. It just needs to disrupt the web shop. We'll give you a parameter file that tells you where to go, and you need to make sure that something happens there. This gave us full isolation. Everybody could choose their own tech stack. And we could then inject a container on any stage of the challenge. For example, when the challenge started, when it actually stopped, and when we're doing other things as well. From that, we looked at, well, what do we then need for the container platform? We need something that we could just say, here's a container, I could run it. It needs to be fast, it needs to be scalable, because we were running on a large scale. Looking back, we overscaled a little bit, but we still triggered 30,000 containers on the event day itself. So 30 times we said to a platform, here's a container, please spin it up. So from that, we started looking at where can we run this stuff. We looked first at Azure Container Instances, and it was a choice between Container Instances and Azure Community Services, or AKS. For AKS, you need to provision your whole cluster, you need to tender for it, make sure that it's up to date, and you need to scale it out yourself. You need to make sure that everything is available. And in ACI, you don't have any of that. You don't have any initial setup, but the trick was that when you start a container, they actually spin up a virtual machine in the background for you and then load your container on it. While on AKS, of course, the virtual machine was already running, and so they could schedule that container easily for you. So starting containers on ACI is a bit slow. We want to make sure that when people run our challenges website, said, I want to start a challenge here, they could read some text, watch a funny video, and then the workshop should be down. So we wanted to have a faster start for the containers. And there are also soft limits on ACI. For example, in ACI, you can only start like 300 containers in 1 hour. And we were doing 300,000, or 30,000, sorry. So that wouldn't scale for us. So we went over to AKS. In the end, we even provisioned 3 AKS clusters to make sure that we didn't have any single point of failure. We could move nodes around it, or move load around if need be. But that meant that we did have a lot more things that we needed to manage ourselves. For monitoring, we used both Application Insights and Google Analytics. Application Insights for the back end, making sure that everything is running. And we use Google Analytics for the front end to only see what the attendees in our web app were doing, the challenges website. And the engineer who was responsible for this, our team member, split that up deliberately, so we could make sure that we were using the strengths of each platform. For AKS, we just used the normal out-of-the-box available cluster monitoring. We could just see that the active pod count were going up, and no failures were really doing something. This is a screenshot from the day itself. And we could see that our node utilization on the top and left corner was really low, so we were very much over-provisioned, and that was fine for us. This was enough information that we needed to have for the AKS cluster. In Application Insights, we then had an overview of what is running where. You can see the challenges website on the right hand. We had 18 instances running because we were scaling out an app service plan, an app service on an app service plan there. We even had 3 different regions running the challenges website with traffic manager in front of it, so we had low latency to each attendee. And we were running 3 AKS clusters as control plane here, so we could monitor everything from our setup as well. And in Google Analytics, we could then see who's using the website, are they already starting challenges, what time zone are they in, and does that match where we are during the day. So that was very helpful for us as well. Of course, we said you build it, you run it. So that means that during the event, we started at 10 a.m. in the morning in New Zealand, 11 p.m. our time, and we went all the way over the world following the sun until the coast of the United States would stop at 4 p.m. for them. So that meant we had to run it for 36 hours. We had our communication mostly on Slack. We had our own SRE channel there where the team members who were responsible for running it were there. And we had a video bridge in Teams where you could just jump in, talk to each other. It was a little bit faster than Slack, and you can reach out. As I said, we started at 11 p.m. our time. And then it's more or less an hour or so starting up the event. So that was 12 p.m. and then starting up the challenges and making sure that all the challenges are working. You want to see that everybody's at least started one of the challenges. So that's a long time to check into it. This of course goes back to risk management. Can your platform handle the load? Do you have fallbacks if things are not working? We even had manual fallbacks for the venue organizers. What if our AKS cluster is down, for example? We gave them all the Docker containers, so with the settings for themselves, so they could start it even locally if need be. You need to do that in your day job as well, of course. Some of the learnings from doing that for 36 hours is that you need to be prepared. You want to run everything in isolation and independent, but you want to have some fallback scenarios there as well. For us, caching and scaling really helped and making sure that everything was available. And you need to have your observability, of course, in place. You want to see what your platform is doing in there. And one of the most important things is, well, we were doing it for 36 hours, starting late at the evening for us. Don't do that with 3 SREs in the same time zone. I went to bed at 4 a.m. with bags under my eyes. I was very tired, just making sure the platform is running. So for the next time, we were searching for an SRE in a different time zone. This is all driven by the one single starting point for us is customer happiness. We want to give the attendees an experience that they wouldn't forget. They would learn something on Azure DevOps. They are spending their free Saturday with us. So we really focused on customer happiness. And if you start doing that in your normal work as well, all the requirements and restraints flow from that. Your customer doesn't want to wait long for a page load in the web browser. You need to make sure that it's within the right constraints. This is something that you need to keep in mind. This is the most important thing. All right. Some of the key takeaways for this session that we already went over, but I'll summarize them for us. Is start with a vision in mind. This is what we want to achieve. Make sure that that is always the case and always for the whole team available. This is the thing that we want to reach. Let's make sure that it happens. These are images from the day itself that all of the venue organizers sent in to us. And somebody made a nice slideshow out of that. It was really a community event worldwide with 10,000 people. We started with designing with the end in mind. What was our goal? We knew we had that scale. We wanted to cap it at 100 venues. That meant around 1,200 teams that we needed to provision. In the end, I've even provisioned 1,400 teams with our pipelines and with our team members. So you need to have that end goal in mind to make sure that everything works. It's not big design up front, but you know that you will need such a scale in the end. So you need to design that as well. Design with that end in mind as well. You need to, of course, engage your sponsors and stakeholders, make sure that everybody is on board. And we were thinking big. How big can we make this? How many venues can we run on this platform? Can we handle even more load? What happens there? So don't let yourself be constrained by thinking really small and saying, maybe I don't need it. But think big in your ambitions there as well.
Rob, we have only 1 minute left for the talk.
Oh, sorry. I'm almost there. I'll wrap up. We talked about the build versus buy decision and risk management and the focus on customer happiness. Most importantly, don't start asking permission for doing things. The Global DevOps Bootcamp started with somebody said, well, I want to do this. Let's skip this one. And this is the most important link for this session. If you want to know more, I've gathered all the community information in this link. All the posts, blog posts, and the video behind the scenes videos are here. So if you really want to know more, visit this link, and otherwise reach me on Twitter, of course, on my handle, where you can find me. Okay, thank you so much.
And thank you for your talk. And as co-organizers of DevOps Bootcamp in Ukraine, we are glad that you today show us a bit of backstage. Yeah, by the way, guys, the DevOps Bootcamp this year will happen 25th of October. And in Ukraine, we already started preparation. So please find our updates.
Cool. Yeah. This year will be very cool. We have some things in mind that are even better than last year.
Okay, guys, catch a chance to ask questions directly in questions and answers Zoom conference. So you can join now and talk to Rob. And we will be back in a minute or two to get more details about our after party part. So please stay with us.